Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Very glad to have you with us for the Monday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We trust you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully you enjoyed our special episodes on what we're politically thankful for and otherwise, and also our creative Black Friday gifts for political figures. If you haven't had time to check out those podcasts, please check those out. But today we're back to our usual programming, officially good, mixed, and crazy martinis today. Jim, I'm sorry about the Jets. I know you were attending the game, so that did not go well. I've given up on the Bears already this year, but Michigan beat Ohio State, so I'm pretty good for another year.
I was going to say, I'm glad you had found some enjoyable football. Look, I was there with my dad, my kids, and my brother, and we wanted to witness history. And we did, because nobody else has ever had a Hail Mary pick six return for like 98, 99 yards. So years from now, like that clearly has displaced the butt fumble as the most embarrassing play in Jets history. People are going to be talking about this for years to come. And I'll be able to say, yes, I was there in person. I got to see that.
How loud were you screaming?
It was more stunned. You could hear in the entire stadium, just a general recognition that there wasn't anybody who had a particularly good angle, and that all the receivers are far down in the end zone, so they're not in a position to tackle the guy. The linemen are slow and lumbering and in no particular place, and the only guy to get who had a chance for it was the quarterback Boyle, and he got juked out of his jock strap on the last couple of yards there. So. Just pointing out the New York Jets defense, perhaps the single most unappreciated entity on the entire planet, had not just one but two interceptions, like in the last 4 minutes of the half. One was a pick six, and they returned and got 6 points. The Jets promptly missed the extra point, and with that span, the Jets managed to go from being down 10-0 to down 17-6. Two interceptions in the final 4 minutes, and somehow the Jets ended up trailing by more than when they started. That's an epic exercise in futility.
Well, December awaits, and your math is better than mine, but neither math is good at this point. But we'll see.
Oh no, the tank is on. The tankathon. Now we're already looking at the draft. Okay. We got all the way to Thanksgiving this year. So.
There you go. All right. Well, let's talk about our good martini. And this one is in the Middle East, which we'll also talk about in our mixed martini. This one not getting as much attention, but it's good to see the U.S. ready to act and acting when necessary over there. Thanks to Hot Air for flagging the story and Associated Press for the original story. Armed assailants seized and later let go of a tanker linked to Israel off the coast of Yemen on Sunday, before being apprehended by the United States Navy. 2 ballistic missiles fired from Houthi-controlled Yemen then landed near a U.S. warship, aiding the tanker in the Gulf of Aden, raising the stakes amid a series of ship attacks linked to the Israel-Hamas war. Yemen's internationally recognized government blamed the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels for the attack, though the rebels in control of the capital did not acknowledge either the seizure or the missile attack. The attackers seized the Liberian-flagged Central Park in the Gulf of Aden, and ultimately the U.S. not only interdicted, but actually arrested a number of the pirates, if you want to call them that. As Jim, you put in our email today, U.S. 5, Houthis 0. But it does show how aggressive Iran and its proxies continue to be in the region, but it's also good to know we're ready to move when we need to.
Greg, I'm kind of struck by how little attention the tensions off the coast of Yemen have gotten in the past 2 months or so. I realize the news cycle is very busy with coverage of Israel and Hamas, and there's no denying that's a big deal. But this is an area in which U.S. troops and sailors are in harm's way, and all kinds of just fascinating little details in this story. Among them, that I believe it was a Japanese naval destroyer that also assisted the U.S. Always kind of fascinating when you see the U.S. alliances and past disagreements being, put aside. Look, it's great to see and just going to recognize just how extraordinary this operation at sea was by the U.S. Navy, is that even the U.S. Army is saying, good job with the big game coming up in a couple of weeks.
that always is a nice thing. I think it on the less good side here, the Biden administration wants to maintain a good relationship with Iran for whatever reason, and the media seems to be compliant to go along. So if it's Iran-backed Houthi rebels causing irrefutable mischief in the region, it's going to get downplayed, right?
Yeah, look, yes. First of all, apparently nothing will make this administration realize there's no deal to be had with Iran. They are not reasonable. There is no separate agreement that can be reached on their nuclear program, et cetera. One detail in this story that kind of jumped out at me that I wonder if there's a way for the U.S. to kind of more prominently publicize in the area. So the reason these gunmen were not able to take over the tanker is that these ships have an area called the Citadel, which is a designated secure space for crew members to wait out pirates while continuing to control vital ship systems. So basically a safe room, right? The pirates are coming on board, you go into the Citadel, you can still control the ship, you can still steer it, you can still keep it going, or stop it if you want to, but you don't, you're reasonably safe from the pirates on board. If the U.S. and other groups let everybody know everybody's got this system, I wonder if that would be a deterrent effect on additional attempts to hijack these ships, because you're not going to succeed. You're just not going to be able to get to it, and you can't get control of it. And sooner or later, the U.S. or other allies will show up, and they will take control of you. And trust us, you don't want to get into a gunfight with the U.S. Navy.
All right, let's talk about our fantastic sponsor for today, and that is 4Patriots, makers of many different fine products. We talked to you about the generator and the best-selling survival food kits, but did you know that 4Patriots makes tons of other great products? Just as an example, the Patriot Power Blender, the Leafy Green Hydro Garden and Floral Seed Kits, Aztec Chili with Mango Survival Food Kits, and the Sun Kettle Solar Cooker. Plus, of course, you know about the Patriot Power Generator 2000X, charges better than any other non-solar powered device in a blackout, double the capacity, more peak power than ever before, plus new expandable capability for even more power. Comes with a solar panel. You don't have to pay for gas. Fume-free, silent, and safe, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. So right now, visit 4patriots.com/martini to see this week's discounts and deals before they are gone, and get free shipping on orders over $97. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to the number 4patriots.com/martini. That's 4patriots.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our mixed martini, which includes some very, very good news and also some frustrating news. While we were gone, in fact, I think the day we were both on the road, we got news that there was going to be a pause, a 4-day pause in the fighting between Israel and Hamas in order for hostages to be released, a few dozen hostages, in fact. Also, Israel releasing Palestinian prisoners. The media keeps trying to conflate these two things, which drives me nuts. Hostages, innocent people taken during the heinous October 7th raid versus, people who tried to kill Israelis at a different point in history. Somehow being treated as equal in some parts of the media. But as we watch this, Jim, we also see, the fantastic reunions. We saw this 4-year-old girl, Abigail Edan, released, I believe the first American citizen to be released, along with 14 Israelis and 2 other foreign nationals. Today's the last day of the pause, and it seems like, while we're thrilled at these hostage releases, that perhaps the Biden administration and others are going to try to push the pause even longer. They'll probably fail, but some people seem more interested in keeping the pause going than actually finishing the job against Hamas. So what's your take here?
You hate to have any kind of negative response to something as necessary as the release of these hostages. But at the same time, each day during this pause is a time that Hamas can use to regroup, retreat to the south, move weapons stockpiles, find new hiding places. Hamas very much wanted Israel to stop shooting as soon as this conflict began, and they've gotten what they've wanted. And under the agreement that was proposed and reached, Israel said that for every 10 hostages released, we'll extend the ceasefire for another day. And on paper, that's good. On paper, that gives, an incentive structure for Hamas to release as many hostages as possible. The problem is that Hamas now has the opportunity to dangle additional releases and then drag its feet on the actual release of those hostages. We've already seen, at least by my count, 3 different ways in which Hamas didn't honor its end of the bargain. They delayed the release, the second round of hostage releases, for 8 hours because they said the trucks had not reached where they were supposed to. Israel said, we sent the trucks. There was really no indication that Israel was not sending the trucks. but apparently this caused all kinds of pressure from our Middle East allies and the Biden administration on Hamas to say, hey, you said you were going to do this. You got to do this. About 15 minutes into the ceasefire, somebody fired a rocket into Israel. May not have been Hamas, could have been Palestinian Islamic Jihad or some other extremist group. But clearly there are groups who wanted this ceasefire to fail. The rocket was intercepted by the Israelis. No harm was done. And the Israelis did not count that as a violation of the ceasefire. And it went forward. And thankfully, more hostages were released. But then finally, Hamas had agreed to release parents and children together. And at least 3 cases, they released kids without the parent. So Hamas does not keep their promises. I know this is going to shock all of you out there. But what's more, this makes any additional agreements, and also as they are attempting to extend this ceasefire beyond the 4 days, and I believe today is the last day of that, Hamas wants an end to Israeli military raids in the West Bank. This is the other major Palestinian territory on the other side of Israel. And for everyone at Vox, no, they are not connected by a land bridge. Now, there was nothing about the West Bank in the initial round of agreements. Now there's a possibility of extending it, but now Hamas is making new demands. This is very difficult negotiations if you cannot trust the person you are negotiating with to keep their promises. The Israelis, obviously want to get every hostage out that they can. I think we should all be realistic that in the end, the hostages are one of Hamas's primary forms of leverage, which means they're not going to want to give up all of those hostages. My suspicion is that as these negotiations go on, and as the number of hostages in Hamas possession get smaller and smaller, the concessions that they will demand will get larger and larger, and the negotiations will get tougher and tougher. The question is, as we approach this deadline, will Israel say, okay, we're getting up from the negotiating table, you guys aren't serious about this, and we're restarting the military operations? Or will there be significant pressure on Israel? Just give them a little more time. Come on, just be. And my fear is that we're going to end up in this nebulous area where the ceasefire has expired, but Israel hasn't started firing again, and maybe somebody else is going to send 1 or 2 more rockets or something. We'll end up in a muddle in which Hamas keeps saying that they're willing to release the hostages, but they won't actually do it, and or their demands on Israel will become increasingly unrealistic. So I would like to be more optimistic about this. Obviously, my heart is delighted to see everybody released, even though I think for all of those hostages, this is just like they're never going to be the same. And this is going to be the first step on a very long road to anything resembling recovery for most of them. But look, Hamas is figuring out how to play this whole process like a fiddle. And, the Israeli government is caught between its need to either destroy Hamas or so significantly degrade it that it is no longer a serious threat to the state of Israel, and at the same time to get their people back. And I don't know how much leverage they have. And I think the problem is that the leverage was created by the military operations. And those military operations have now stopped, and no one knows when they're going to restart again, if they're going to restart again.
Well, Jim, our concerns are being ratified in real time here because the Qataris are now suggesting that there's going to be an additional 2 days. Obviously, any more hostages we can get out in that time would be great. But now that pushes it up, if this is true, to 6 days of a pause, which gives Hamas a whole lot of time to rearm and potentially gain more leverage for the release of any others.
Hey, everyone. This is Sarah Carter from The Sarah Carter Show. Thanks so much for listening to 3 Martini Lunch. We could all benefit from heart healthy energy, and one of the best ways to do that is by supporting your blood pressure and circulation. Super Beets Heart Chews are an easy and convenient way to support healthy blood pressure paired with a healthy lifestyle. The antioxidants in Super Beets are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. Folks, I take my Super Beets with me everywhere. They are delicious. They come in like little squares in foil, and you just put them in your pocket. You can take them with you anywhere and everywhere. You take them out, take them in the morning, and you feel great all day long. If I'm in New York, if I'm in Florida, if I'm in Chicago, if I'm in LA, I've got my Super Beets with me. They're plant-based and stimulant-free, so you get a productive, heart-healthy green boost without the jitters. Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews and a free full-sized bag, listen to this, of turmeric chews valued at $25 by going to americalovesbeets.com. Can't beat that. Get this exclusive offer only at americalovesbeets.com. That's americalovesbeets.com.
All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now, but sticking with terrorism, or what people thought was terrorism for a while. And that is, again, the day that we left, there was an explosion on what's called the Rainbow Bridge linking the U.S. to Canada, New York State. And I always thought the Rainbow Bridge is what we told kids is where pets went later. But anyway, the initial report from several different outlets was terrorism. So some people went with that. And then the official line now is that it was not deliberate terrorism. And my initial request on this story today was just how quickly it vanished once the official word was that it wasn't terrorism. But it gets a lot weirder than that. Investigators currently believe that the couple involved in this explosion, and now dead, had originally been headed to a Kiss concert that was canceled. I'm not sure there's any concert in the world that would get me to do anything like this, Jim, but you got to be pretty desperate for it to be a Kiss concert. So what do we actually know here? I mean, do we trust the official explanation? What do you make of it?
Greg, at this point, I don't see a reason to believe that there is some vast cover-up or conspiracy going on here. This appears to be some very bizarre circumstances. There's a whole column in the Philadelphia Inquirer here saying that Fox News was propagandizing people into believing it was a terrorist attack. Look, when there's a giant explosion right before Thanksgiving at a time of serious tensions in the Middle East, attacks on Jews, etc., that I don't think it's unreasonable for anyone to think that an exploding car at a border post to be concerned that it is terrorism. That said, the story that's come out, none of the details that have come out further suggest that this is a terrorist attack. For starters, in a perfect bit of irony, the car was a 2022 Bentley Flying Spur for a car that managed to fly through the air before crashing and violently exploding. So first of all, that's a really nice car for a group of terrorists, Greg.
It is.
If that's the case, I think it's got at least six figures in its cost, and it's can reach 175 miles per hour. I don't know if that's the speed that it was at, but it certainly sounds like it was going phenomenally fast. And if you happen to see some of that security footage, it's not a great view of the car, but just in the background, you can see this thing whiz by and then go airborne as if they were filming the Dukes of Hazzard or something like that. Let's also note that this is going from the United States into Canada. If you were a terrorist, is this how you do it? Is this how you would, this just doesn't seem to, the target doesn't make a ton of sense. The method doesn't make a ton of sense. The driver is apparently this Kurt Villani. Monica Villani is his wife. Married couple, both 53. They own several businesses in Western New York. Very active in Italian-American causes. The mayor of their town was raving about what a great people they were. Hosting big family dinners, exchanging gifts with neighbors, plowing driveways during Western New York's often brutal winter. They just don't fit the profile, so to speak, of terrorists. Now, I guess I'm reading this and I'm thinking this kind of reminds me a little bit of the Las Vegas mass shooting, which we never really got any clear motive for this. And I've heard all kinds of speculation, all kinds of different areas. There are three possibilities here. One possibility is a mechanical failure that there are numerous cases who get into terrible accidents, say that they hit the brake and that the car accelerated instead of braking, and there are accidents. From what I understand, the National Transportation Safety Board looked at these, and at least in most, if not the overwhelming majority of these cases, the explanation that makes sense is the driver was confused. They thought they were hitting the brake, they're hitting the accelerator, car won't stop, ends up in a crash. So I suppose it's possible they'll be doing, from what's left of that car, which is not much, they will try to figure out if there's potential mechanical error. The possibility of the driver hitting the accelerator and thinking they're hitting the brake and careening out of control certainly is a possibility. And the third possibility, which strikes me as the most bizarre, is that they were genuinely that depressed about the cancellation of the Kiss concert and chose to go out in a blaze of glory. Again, these are all supremely unlikely, bizarre scenarios. Could it be, a suicide pact, or he's at the wheel and he chooses to end it? I guess it's possible, but seems really bizarre. Seems like this couple in their early 50s would have a lot to live for. My guess is when all is said and done, they're going to say, okay, this is probably driver error, accelerated when they wanted to brake, ended up careening out of control. But boy, oh boy, bizarre and frightening story, and an indication that Yeah, again, I don't begrudge anyone for looking at this and their first reaction being terrorism, considering the state of the world right now.
The media, obviously, once they heard from investigators that it most likely is not terrorism, they just dropped the story. I mean, it's obviously more significant if there is some sort of sinister motive clearly behind it, but just the way that they'll move on when there are still a lot of unanswered questions from something like this at a national border is something else. I remember many years ago, it's like late 90s, there was a private plane from Burbank or somewhere near Hollywood that crashed on its way to Vail or Aspen or something, and CNN went wall to wall, assuming that at least one famous person was on this thing. The next morning, they get the manifest. There's nobody who's like a A-lister on the plane. Immediately drop the story, move on to something else. So the kind of gawker approach to the media and some of this stuff is
I remember somebody on social media once observing that, like, death is, none of us look forward to death. To die in a plane crash or something like that is a frightening, terrible way to go. But boy, if you die on a plane with a celebrity, nobody's going to remember you. It's always like, Soupy Sales and 187 other people die in plane accident or something.
That was going to be great anyway. The fact that you use Soupy Sales just makes it fantastic.
Like, it's always some like obscure, Kobe Bryant. That was a very big deal when somebody died in a helicopter accident. But it's usually some, this person who had the third role in a 1970s sitcom, and your loved ones also all died in that plane crash.
Yes, the media always takes the easy way out with those things. But anyway, Jim, good to be back with you. Have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Do subscribe to the podcast. If you don't already, please tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific Monday and join us again on Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.